Hi, friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Mental Fitness Unscripted podcast, where our conversation will encourage your healthy living journey. Inspired by our Team Quadzilla coaching motto, healthy living starts between your ears, we talk about mental fitness in ways that challenge us to think about our thinking regarding topics like habits, leadership, exercise, values, marriage, parenting, and faith. Our hope with this podcast is to sharpen you as we sharpen ourselves to be all we were made to be. So let's dive right into the conversation on this episode of Mental Fitness Unscripted.
Hey, Chad. I see you brought
Good morning.
with you. I love it on your shirt.
Yes. Yeah, Yukon is, he's one of my favorites. Yeah, he's picking kindness today.
I like
He's
it.
not looking for silver.
He's not after gold or silver today, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love how he tastes the snow. Nope, not
Yeah.
puts the axe in the snow and
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I just wore my Spartan shirt.
There you go.
So.
I'm a fan of the Spartans.
Yes,
The
you
other
are.
kind of Spartans.
Yes, you are.
This is all good.
This is even kind of green for you there.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's from a few years ago, World Championships.
Nice.
I actually placed in one of the races there. Well,
Oh.
I didn't place. I was number 17 in that race, so in my
Okay.
age group.
Cool.
That was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. Not bad for an old fat guy, huh?
Yeah.
Of course, when all you're racing against is older fat guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
There are some really serious competitors there. I mean, there's some.
Oh, I can imagine.
So yeah.
But that puts you in the 1%, right?
Well, it's pretty small. I'd have to go back and look how many people are in the field, but it's pretty.
Well, I just mean of people.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah. I mean
the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
There's a very small fraction of
it'd be a really
your
tiny
peers.
number.
Yeah, exactly. And so while when you first hear about the 1%ers, it always wants to run political for the wealthy versus the not wealthy and whatever. And I'm like, well, guess what? First of all, we're all wealthy. And if you live in America, period, you're wealthy.
Absolutely.
And secondly, the kind of 1%er we're talking about has to do with lifestyle and habits and doing things that the vast majority in our peer group are not or cannot, because they already set their course. But anyhow,
it's interesting you put it that way, because I have a friend that he asks me all the time, Todd, why do you do that stuff?
Yeah.
And I'll answer him, and it really frustrates him, but I'll answer him just what you said, because I can.
Yeah.
I do it because I can. And, the rest of that is that he's made choices that he can't. And it's not good or bad. I mean, he does stuff way better than I could in other areas. I mean, he's fantastic in other areas, but it's because I've made choices that I'm not there with him, and vice versa. So yeah. Anyway, we all have our little place in the sun, right?
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. That you can't choose everything.
Well, we all have our little place.
That's the definition of choice.
Yeah.
Is one thing over another. And so you can't choose everything. You can't at the same time, especially with opposing things, you can't at the same time be a lazy turd sitting on the couch and be an athlete and participate in extreme events.
I was hiding some equipment from my wife. She needs her exercise ball. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
No, it's true. So you wanted to talk about why we started this thing. Gosh, how many years ago? I mean, it's been, wasn't it COVID?
It was. Yeah.
I think it was March in
Yeah, we
2020,
started meeting in COVID, and then going on almost 2 years now, we decided, why aren't we recording this? I would sure like to remember what we talked about. Maybe somebody else would get something out of it. But yeah, so just the idea that, you know, we call this mental fitness unscripted because we don't plan it. We don't plan what we're going to talk about. I might think about it a few minutes before we get on, but I don't know where it's going to go or even what I'm going to say. And today was no exception. I didn't really know what we would talk about. And so I thought, well, why don't we just go all the way back to the beginning and the very basics and fundamental, because what is mental fitness and why do we even care? And that thought occurred to me because I was in a mentoring meeting conversation with a fellow that's like-minded in many ways. We think critically, and we are trying to grow and to be better. And yet the reality is that it's hard sometimes, and circumstances will conspire and against us, and we find ourselves maybe in a patch of discouragement or failure against our goals or our plans, and we start kicking rocks and be like, oh man, this is just terrible and I don't know what to do, and
I suck.
all is lost, and you just kind of, you know, spiral down. And so we kind of dug into that for a minute, and we're like, well, wait a second, isn't that the type of thing that happens when we take our eye off the ball, essentially, and we're not thinking about our thinking, because our nature is going to go to the negative, because we're selfish creatures. And when things start going bad, we start focusing on ourselves. And so then everything becomes about woe is me, and life is too hard, and everybody's against me, and I can't, and da 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 da. This is why we need mental fitness, is because this is what happens to us. Even the strongest of us, we can get into these spots. And it happens to me all the time, still way more frequently than it should. And I have got to get to this point where I am consciously choosing against all of that and remembering what is true and real and who I am and why I'm doing any of this stuff, why it matters, and allow all of that kind of positive side of things pull me out of this ugly self-focus that's despairing. So as short as I can say it, that's how I think of mental fitness and why it's important. So anyway, I'm sure we can talk about that forever, but first thoughts or reaction to that intro.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And what's interesting is where the mind goes, the body will follow. And you know, we want to do all these things. We want to eat better. We want to get in shape. We want to make more money. We want to be a good husband and father. You know, you just line up all these things, and it requires action that your body takes. You know, for me to be present with my wife, I've got to be there. I've got to be in the room with her. I've got to talk to her. I've got to, you know, have the conversation. And so I have to have that mental fitness that that helps me with that identity that I choose for myself. And so I'll use that. I want to be a good wife, or let's say good wife or husband, a good spouse. But in my case, I want to be a good husband. Okay, that's noble, but what does that look like?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
so what does that look like? And so what you do is you drill down to, okay, exactly what that is so that you have clarity. So that when somebody says, "Oh, I want to be a good husband," you suddenly refer to your clarified definition of that identity that you've taken on.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's a very
Yeah,
clear
absolutely.
picture.
It's asking ourselves the question why, however many times it takes to get to the bottom.
Exactly. Okay.
Because we
And
don't do that. We
mm-mm.
simply land at, well, because somebody said so, or I read it on the internet.
Or you
Like,
see a
well,
good
that's
podcast like this one, and I'd
yeah,
like to be like Chad.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But none of that holds, does it?
Well, no, no, it won't hold water. The only way it will hold is if you define what it is for you. Because comparing
Yeah.
to Chad or Todd or pick whoever, it will never measure.
Yeah.
It's like trying to chase the horizon as you're running towards the horizon to catch it. You just run and run and run, and it's just always the same distance from you.
Yeah.
It's like running to chase the horizon, and what you've got to do is
Mm.
define exactly what is it for me.
Yes.
Not what does my dad think. Now, in the case of a
Mm.
husband, I think there should be some influence from the spouse. Just your
Mm-hmm.
just saying. I think
Yeah.
there needs to be some influence there, but you know what? I think that influence is great because that's how you're going to interact with that other person, with your spouse.
Yeah.
Same is true of business partner. If you take on that identity, what does that look like? Drill down. Why, and really clarify that picture. Um, if you don't have a measurement, it will never measure.
That sounds so obvious, and yet
But we do it
we do it all the
all
time.
the
It's
time.
like we're aimless. We're blown around like a leaf in the wind because we don't have a direction or a standard or a definition.
Okay. And so I think it comes down to being very clear on that identity that you want to have, and just
Mm.
really defining that so that when Chad says, "Yeah, I want to be a world-class athlete." Well, what does that look like? It looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
Even world-class athletes that compete
Yeah.
with each other, it looks very different. Um,
Yeah.
there's a famous picture of what was his name? Phelps, the swimmer.
Oh, okay.
Um, why can't I think of his name?
Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps, thank you. Anyway, he's swimming against this Brazilian who is supposed to be right there with him, maybe even beat him.
Mm.
And the way they approached this race was so different. And what's funny is there's this famous picture. I've got it somewhere in my files here, but there's this famous picture of Michael Phelps. He is focused. He's just in the process. He's just doing his strokes. And in 2 lanes over, you can see this guy looking over to see where Michael is.
Mm.
And guess who lost?
Yeah. He was worried about the other guy instead of
He was
himself.
comparing.
Yeah.
It's the wrong measurement. Okay.
Mm.
And far too often we do that. But yeah, just that little glance. I'm sure it was just hardly even a second. But you know what?
Yeah.
In a race where you're winning by hundredths of a second,
Yeah.
that's a big deal. Okay. That's a big
Yeah,
deal.
that's true. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Hmm.
So yes,
Yeah, so who is it that we are trying to become, right? That's a pretty key question.
well,
Um,
rather than just divorce that I shouldn't compare to anybody, let's call it benchmarking. There may be some things from somebody that you want to add to your thing
Mm.
and benchmark.
Yeah.
There's only one person I know that was perfect, and so be careful what you benchmark.
Yeah.
Rather than benchmarking what appears to be the complete person, look at pieces of it and say, okay, what can I add to my picture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the reality is we're all imitators.
We are.
Whether you admit it or not, or whether you like it or not, we're all imitating somebody in many different somebodies, according to the different traits or characters, for better or for worse. So yeah, again, thinking about your thinking. Who is it that I'm trying to become? Who is it that I'm following or emulating? Who is it that I'm paying my attention to? Who is it that I'm surrounding myself with? Because we know that those are the people who have the greatest influence on
Yep.
us. These are all things that are essentially choices for us to make, and many of us aren't. Well, I can't say that. We are making the choices. We just aren't consciously aware that we're making the choices, and maybe they're not as great as they should be because we're not paying attention.
See, and I think you make such a great point there. It's a conscious thing, and we have to revisit it because we will get to the point that we're unconscious doing it again, to where we have to go back to that touchstone and just say, okay, where am I? What am I doing?
Yeah.
Where am I headed? It's like traversing some wilderness without a GPS. Even with a GPS, you've got to refer to it on a regular basis. But back in the old days, you used to have a map and a compass, and you were always referring to that.
Mm.
Always referring to that. There's a famous story in aviation. There was a 747 that took off out of New Zealand to go to Antarctica on a sightseeing trip.
Okay.
So they loaded this 747 up full of these people, and the idea was to fly over Antarctica and then fly down really close so that they could see the ice and so forth and see what it looked like, and check off that bucket list that I've seen Antarctica. So both pilots, the pilot and the co-pilot, the captain and the co-pilot, they'd never flown this flight before. They get on the 747 and they're flying along. They get to Antarctica. They go down close to the ground, and they're flying along. And it's of course it's a total whiteout because the ground's white, the sky's white, everything matches, and so they're gauging off of their instruments and they're checking and what they didn't know is that somebody had programmed the flight guidance and it was off by 2 degrees. Now, if you think about it, there's 360 degrees in a circle, okay? And so 2 degrees it's nothing, okay?
Yeah. Right.
But over a long distance, like from New Zealand to Antarctica, it ends up being quite significant. In fact, I think it was 45 miles they were off course. Okay. So 2 degrees, I mean, if you want to know what 2 degrees is, hold your hand out with the fist, and 2 degrees is the little valley between those two knuckles. That's 2 degrees. Okay.
Okay.
Which is, if you look out to the horizon, that's nothing.
Right.
But over a significant amount of time, although they were checking all the time, their measurement was wrong.
Oh, okay.
And they flew right into Mount Erebus and killed everybody on board.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, big mistake. 2 degrees, that much.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That
Okay. And that all could have been avoided by calibrating the measurement before they took off.
Yeah, that's a great illustration. Again, asking ourselves important questions like, you know, who is it that I'm aiming to become, and then why? Why do I care? Why does that matter? And um, what is the parameter or the standard that guides all of that? And is that true and accurate and in alignment with my values or priorities or whatever? Because if we're
Yep.
not thinking about these things,
Uh-uh.
we're going to blow up into the
Into the side of the mountain. Yep. So we have to
Oh,
calibrate
fantastic.
against something that is
Yes.
real. You know, I call it a touchstone, and that has a long
Yeah.
story too. But you know, you have to calibrate to something that's real,
Yeah.
that is exact and precise,
Hmm.
and you can develop that for yourself. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Hmm.
I got you thinking.
Yeah,
I love
you
it.
did. There's a lot to that. Um, Here again, in full disclosure, I'm just impressed at how just getting started in our conversation can take us places that I wouldn't imagine, and it's just really helpful um, because this kind of stuff matters. I think, you know, we don't we would never say our plan is to wander aimlessly through our life.
Never, but yet we do it.
Yeah, but our results prove it because we're not thinking about these things and being intentional about who we're trying to be and what we're trying to do and any of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Now, before we go off the cliff and say, woe is me, okay,
Yeah.
that's one sort of measurement that we have to be careful with is, okay, am I calibrating to something right and
Hmm.
exact and precise? Um, you know this, and I'll share with the audience, but I've just recently started building watches. And it's interesting if you've got a mechanical watch, just look at the second hand. And what's funny is it appears huge when you look at it when you're looking at the time.
Mm.
It looks huge, but let me put it in perspective, and I'm going to share my screen. Forgive me here for a second. Okay, so this is looking sideways. This big thing right here, this big plate, is the dial on your watch.
Okay.
Okay, this first axle is the hour hand, and you can see where it goes onto this bigger axle.
Hmm.
On this is on a watch. This one is a minute hand, and it fits onto this axle right here. See it?
Yeah.
So it's staged up. So this one moves independent of this one. And this is the second hand. They call it a staff or an axle. And this is the blue thing is the second hand. Okay. This little staff right here, to give you some idea, is 0.16 millimeters.
Whoa.
Now, to give you some reference, I'm going to stop sharing here. To give you some reference, this is my mechanical pencil. The lead in that pencil right there
Hmm.
is 0.5 millimeters. Okay,
And you said point
one
point one.
six. Okay,
Okay. So five of those make up your pencil lead.
it's essentially three. This is essentially three times bigger. So that
Okay.
the lead
Yeah,
is
three
three
times.
times bigger than what your second hand goes on to.
That's pretty small.
Okay. Now, what's really cool? is on the second hand, when you're setting the second hand on that axle, it's a tolerance fit. It's a press fit on a tube.
What?
And you have to line that tube up on that axle and then press it on.
Huh.
Okay. Got it?
That's cool. Yeah.
It's tiny. Okay. It
It's
is
very small.
tiny.
Yeah.
And if you do it wrong, you'll bend that axle because it's tiny. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is probably the hardest thing that I have to do with the watch, is to get that second hand, because I can see every heartbeat.
Yeah.
I have to breathe. I have to slow down my heart. I have to get it just right. And you're holding it in the air. There's some little nuance. But what's funny is I've watched people do this for like a year before I started doing it. I've watched YouTube videos, and I knew what was coming. Okay. And so I'm building my first watch. And after 2 hours, I was so frustrated, I finally went to bed.
No.
And I'll do it in the morning. Okay.
Yeah.
And I got up in the morning. Of course, I mulled over it all night because I failed. Okay. Right. Failed. And after about a half hour of I watched another video, and I watched closer because now I've got a little bit of experience. I haven't just watched somebody on a video. I've got a little experience trying to get it on there. Got it? And finally, after about a half hour, I finally got it. Oh my gosh, I was over the moon.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, since then, I can put a second hand on. It takes me, I don't know, probably anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes now. Okay.
Wow.
But I look back at the gain that I've made there. And what I could do is I could look at these videos and say, man, this guy is getting that on there in 30 seconds. He just puts it on there, done. And I can't measure that way. What I have to do is I have to measure back from where I've been. Because if I try and do what he's doing, it's a bad measurement.
Yeah, you'll give up. You'll be so discouraged by it, then yeah.
It's a bad measurement. And so we have to measure things from where we've been. Now, it's okay to look out at the horizon. It's okay to benchmark with other people, but we've got to keep that in a frame of mind. Back to our mental fitness. We've got to keep it in a frame of mind that I am okay because I was here and now I'm here.
Yeah.
I am traveling to that, but I'm look how far I've come. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Now, another little measurement. Okay. So I have a little gauge. It listens to the heartbeat of the watch. So these are mechanical watches, and so it ticks, and so it'll listen to the ticks, and it will time those ticks and tell me how many seconds it gains or it loses during a day. Okay. And that's how you test for accuracy of the mechanical watch, is how many seconds it gains or it loses. Okay. I've got one watch that I've been able to get to, it loses 1.7 seconds per day.
Okay.
Now that sounds awful, right? I'm losing time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not accurate. Yeah.
It's not accurate. It's not zero, right? I'm looking for zero, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I can spend my whole life trying to get to zero with that adjustment. Here's the thing. What I need to do is measure how many seconds were in yesterday.
I don't know the math, but it's a lot.
86,000 seconds.
Okay.
And I'm losing 1.7 each day.
Yeah, so when you think of it that way, it really is quite insignificant.
It's insignificant, okay? And that's why I say we're using the wrong measurement. And that's why the mental fitness is I've got to stop. I've got to be conscious about what am I measuring against?
Beautiful.
And decide what that measurement is. Yeah, by the way, minus 1.7 seconds is very accurate
Mm,
in the watch world.
okay. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I really like that illustration. Because this is part of what happens to us, and often it's our own standard, right? Nobody else knows or cares about what our standard is, but we become frustrated in failures toward this thing that we've made up that might sound bad, like 1.7 seconds, but in the greater scheme of things, the big picture of life or whatever, it really doesn't matter. And so that's a curious thing to think about for sure, because I'm certain that I fuss over things that I've made up for myself that really don't matter as much as I make them to be.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Here's another watch that I've built, 9 seconds gain. And what does it call it?
Okay.
It calls it good. I mean,
Calls it good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Huh.
in this scheme of things, 10 seconds out of 86,000 in a day, man.
Yeah. Hmm. Cool. That's good.
So
I see. I knew we could do it. We could talk about something so simple and basic and still have it be a good thing to consider as we walk away today.
well, here's the thing. I would go sit down with yourself, just take a few minutes and decide who you want to be
Yeah.
and be really clear about it and do it for you. If you get the idea, well, so and so is doing, that's great. You can benchmark
Mm,
to that, but how does that apply? Ask the question consciously. How does that apply to who I want to be?
yeah. Yep. Fantastic.
Go spend some time with yourself.
That's right. That's right. Game on.
Game on.
You have permission to take a mental health break, consider these things, and
Well,
then take some action.
yeah. I mean, if you spent 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes a day, I don't know what the math is, but you'd have several hours. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
probably days,
Yeah.
maybe a day or so over the course of a year. But just refine. Just initially you may take a while, but just refine that. Just get more clear, more clear, more clear. It's like that little axle, that I'm putting that second hand on.
Yes.
What I have to do is I have to use magnification to see it. Like,
Mm.
you can hardly, I mean, if you catch it just right in the light, you'll see it with the naked eye.
Golly. Cool.
And it is such an accomplishment when the second hand starts to move and it's like,
Yeah.
I
Huh.
got it.
That's fun. All right, sir.
I appreciate you, Chad. Thank you. You're a great man.
Yeah. Likewise. This is fun. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Mental Fitness Unscripted podcast. Now go take some action, because we know that information alone doesn't change you, but taking even the smallest action in the right direction does. Also, subscribe and comment so more people can find the podcast and be encouraged. If you're ready to take your mental fitness to the next level and you'd like more support, check out teamquadzilla.com for our resources that will help you accelerate your journey. Until next time, remember, healthy living starts between your ears.